Today's show is sponsored by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Piers. Imagine the scene: a veteran TV host causing outrage by interviewing a rising alt-right star who's facing accusations of racism, anti-Semitism, and much more besides. Yes, Bill Maher interviewed Milo Yiannopoulos almost 9 years ago. And some of those who despair at the mainstream rise of Nick Fuentes and his followers believe a lot of this all started back then. Well, Milo Yiannopoulos joins me now.
Welcome
did. To Uncensored.
I hope you're ready for this, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I remember the Bill Maher thing. I remember the fallout from that. Now, when you look back at that, Milo, when you see what's happening with Nick Fuentes, do you feel that you were like at the start of all this, that you were partly responsible for all this? How do you feel about it?
I certainly feel as though it looks a little similar to when I was speaking at Berkeley and giving journalists conniptions. But I think there's something very distinctly different about me and somebody like Nick Fuentes. We've moved quite dramatically in America toward a sort of, I would call it something like an epistemological crisis. 10 years ago, we had positions. There were people with intellectual hinterlands who had opinions and who were consistent in their political beliefs. I don't think Nick Fuentes really believes in anything at all. And I think it's partly a result of the press spinning out of control to attack Donald Trump. There are all kinds of etiologies for it, but I think it's quite a different moment we're experiencing now, and I think he's quite a different phenomenon.
I mean, I interviewed him at length and put to him a number of the more controversial things that he said. He doubled down on most of it. He unashamedly said he was racist. I remember why he was racist in a very racist manner. He was blatantly misogynist and unashamedly so. He kind of hedged round about Holocaust denial, but I suspect, as some people have said,
one thing about Nick Fuentes that you know about him is that he stands on what he says. That's for sure.
He was playing a sort of arch satirical game with me about that, so that he could say later he didn't really mean it. How much of what is going on with him is performative? How much of it, you know him, you used to hang out with him and Ye and others, how much of it is real? How much does he really believe?
Let's find out.
Well, I tried to befriend Nick because I wondered if there was anything to save there. And so I became, I suppose, something like a mentor to him for a couple of years. And it turned out that there really wasn't. He's a person who just wants to hurt people. And I couldn't find, it was like nailing jelly to the wall. I couldn't find any consistent or substantive kind of core to him in any way. I mean, Nick is a kind of chameleonic character in media. On one day, he'll go on a podcast hosted by an African-American who has rappers on, and he'll say, oh, I love immigrants. I know illegal immigrants. No, they're not bad people. And then he'll come on with you where he feels he's on surer ground, and he'll sort of do the smirking, double down kind of mischievous routine. He's a very gifted speaker. He's obviously got very high verbal IQ. He's a very charismatic person. But having observed him and having known him for a little while and been on the receiving end of some of his worst behavior, he's something distinctively different, as I mentioned before, from the provocateurs of a decade ago and the decades before that, in that he is, I think, emblematic of Gen Z, really, in being quite a pure and sort of terrifyingly pure nihilist, and really... I couldn't tell you an opinion, aside from hating Jews, that if he has on Tuesday, he will absolutely for sure still have on Thursday. And that can't be a good thing.
I mean, you mentioned that you're the son of a woman, your mother, who was born in Germany, who was Jewish. I suppose it begs the question, knowing how apparently anti-Semitic he is, I mean, he's constantly attacking Jews, constantly accusing Jews of running the world in a malevolent way and so on. Why would you want to hang around with someone like him? And indeed, Ye, for that matter, who then began spewing anti-Semitic content.
Well, Ye is in a completely different category. I mean, Ye is a generational, a genius. I mean,
yeah, but Ye, like, nobody saw Nick Fuentes kissing like some Jewish priest's hand or whatever. Or like whatever happened like a couple of weeks ago with Ye.
He can speak for himself. He doesn't need me to speak for him. These two people are in completely different categories. I think that maybe to British ears, some of the discourse in America can sound really just baffling and horrifying and hateful. And it's important to understand what's really going on. Whereas 10 years ago, we were sort of saying things to be mischievous and naughty, provocative, and to push the boundaries. That now has sort of evolved into a less ironic kind of I guess you call it an equal opportunities loathing for everybody in the forms of people like Nick Fuentes. But you know, I got to say,
he's right.
I don't have that much of a problem with a lot of what he says when he's talking about. I mean, you know, when you were sort of incredulous about his misogyny,
but it's the new generation, man. Nick Fuentes is in his 20s. It's just the new generation that's evolved on the internet. You didn't necessarily grow up on the internet the way that he would have.
I felt it actually was a little unfair to him because, you know, 10 years ago, we were talking about how men were getting left behind, how women were overtaking them at university, how, you know, the world had suddenly, bafflingly, and very, very abruptly become quite a hostile place to be a man. That situation has not gotten better. And so I think his generation's hostility toward women is, you know, lamentable but very understandable. And you know, when he comes to talk about you know, what he would call Jewish power, there is a discussion to be had there that has not been had for a very long time because people have been you know, spooked or intimidated or threatened into silence because of a you know, an event 75, 80 years ago, which has been, you know, weaponized against I think legitimate debate about, for instance, what the state of Israel is up to. I think it's really good. I mean, and I got to tell you, I really give you a lot of credit for breaking with the establishment on Israel, and you know, coming out with the opinion that you have, which I think is the correct one. But it was very difficult up until about 5 years ago to speak plainly and honestly about some of the most appalling behavior of the Israeli state, because you knew what was going to happen. You knew what you were going to get called. And I do think there's some value to having a character like Nick. I'm not a fan of Nick's, but I do at least see some positive benefit in, if you like, the wreckage he's left behind.
But the problem is that, you know, his groypers, his fan club, you know, all the abuse that's spewed my way since I did the interview was entirely predictable. But I've been really struck, not just by how blatantly misogynist and violent it is about women, and I don't really accept the defence that, well, you know, men have been treated badly. I've been leading the charge for young men to be treated better, for the man bashing to stop and so on. It doesn't mean at the same time you have to just belittle and demean women, or say they shouldn't be allowed to vote, or shouldn't be allowed a job, or, you know, they're going to get old and fat and ugly and they're all annoying. I mean, that's not about defending the male position. It's about just demeaning and belittling and attacking women, which is, to me, grotesque. But I think in terms of
I don't know. I guess
it does look ugly, but you have to understand it in the context of a very heavily feminized society. I mean, we have speech codes in the workplace. We have exams rewritten to favor girls. I mean, it's not just that women are pulling ahead in university. I mean, women really have, you know, engineered.
Yeah, everybody's a pussy
men.
now.
And I'm not.
Let's
saying
be honest.
like
Let's be real here. Everybody's a pussy now.
But do I understand it? I sure do. I really do understand. You know, 22-year-old guy.
Is that because of women in the workplace? I don't know. I might go a little deeper than that. I don't know.
No realistic prospect of building a life for himself.
I wouldn't really say that.
And no path to being a patriarch, no path to being a husband and father that you know, that he can plausibly see.
Dude,
so
you gotta stop farting like that. Please stop farting like that. There's not that much airflow in this house, in this room for that. Okay, you look, yeah, you're cute as hell. I get it. You're so cute. But I do not want to smell your farts. Please, Winnie, look at me. Please stop farting all over the house, all over this room. It smells so bad. I heard that one. I heard that one come out, dude.
Dropping out, they're getting hostile, they're getting bitter. Do I get it? I'll be honest with you, I do. I do understand it.
And what about his racism? He just admitted, yeah, I'm a racist. and then explain why he doesn't want to be walking around near black people and so on. I mean, he articulated perfectly what it is to be a racist, where you want to be away from people because of their skin color.
Feels a little bit? Don't you think everyone feels just slightly like that? Maybe he's an extreme case in the wake of George.
Hot take. It's not racist to be a party to want to be around your people who look like you. It's not racist, okay? It's an opinion. It's way people feel, you know? And it doesn't have to necessarily be about race. People want to be a part of their own tribe, right? Gamers tend to interact and be friends with other gamers. Christians don't go to a Muslim mosque or a Muslim church or whatever they're called. A Jew doesn't go to a Baptist church. People who are people who are part of a tribe like to be with their tribe. You know, just like if white people want to live with white people and Indians want to live with Indians and blacks want to live with blacks and the Asians want to live with the Asians, who gives a fuck? That's their personal opinion. That's not because they hate the other race. It's just a preference, you know? And I don't think people should be shit on for that. And that's honestly Nick's view from what I've heard. And, you know, now that's just that topic, okay? He does be going off the rails sometimes.
Floyd, and perhaps they're...
But like wanting to live with like white people wanting to live with a white guy wanting to live with other white people, I don't see why that's a problem.
Frustration.
Humans are naturally tribalistic.
Is
they always want to be with their own tribe.
That made it happen or whatever.
I mean, bro, there's even white churches and black churches. As in, you know, there's white and black churches. You ever been to a black church? It ain't like a white church. Even the funerals are different. There's a kid back when I was in high school that he drowned in the lake, and everyone from school went to his funeral, and he was a black kid. Bro, me and all the white people were looking around when like a choir of like fucking 100 black people came out, and it just the ceremony turned into a fucking party where they were like just having all this fucking fun, which whatever. Okay. But we didn't, you know, we're used to like going to funerals where there's not like, it's sad. It's just different. It's different, you know? So when we went to a black funeral at a black church, it was different. Is there anything wrong with it? No. You know, do I wish it didn't have rights? No.
There is a phrase
that's just too far.
It's okay that
people just want to be with their own tribe.
A safer version of the word. There's a phrase in America at the moment, Negro fatigue, and it is used to describe people just being sick of hearing about, you know, black people this, black people that, black people complaining in the wake of George Floyd, which was just the most grotesque absurdity and offence to common sense and to decency.
Do you think it's acceptable? Do you think it's acceptable and decent to use a phrase like the one you just used?
Well, I don't think there's too much wrong with what I just said. I certainly don't wake up in the morning.
I'll be right back. I'll keep letting this run though.
Glad that the world is more full of hate. I'm a Catholic, so you know the most important thing to me is not.
So why would you use a phrase like the one you just used? If you don't want to fuel that kind of thing,
I don't think.
Why would you use a phrase that you know is so inflammatory?
Well, there are much worse versions of that. I was using a sanitized version out of respect for your program.
I doubt the average black viewer watching this or African American who hears about that is going to see it that way.
I think they'd rather be called what I said than have somebody who you know, than have white people kind of tied up in knots, not even sure whether they should call them African American or black, because these things are sort of, you know, used as a sort of ever-changing linguistic weaponry against you know one race in society. Look, I mean, you can get waylaid and go down on a tangent about that if you want. What I was trying to explain in you know an anthropological way, it was explain to you, you know, how people are feeling in America, and it's not just 22-year-old far-right racists that feel like this. It's not.
Well, what I'm struggling to do, if I'm honest with you, Milo, I'm struggling to see where you are different to Fuentes, other than you speak in a posh English accent. I mean, you've basically agreed with everything he's been saying while saying, I don't agree with him.
No, I mean, I think there's a big difference between somebody who is leaning into animosity and hatred of others, and somebody who is observing it happening, sympathetic about the origins,
we back?
and
Sorry about that.
lamenting the fact that it
What I
exists.
missed?
I don't think the tone that I'm taking, irrespective of my accent, is anything like the way that Nick talks, and I think the comparison's slightly silly.
Well, because I think you can say
just because I can understand, because I'm empathetic to this group of people, and because I think that now and again they have a point about things, doesn't make me Nick. It means that I can perhaps understand that group a little bit, sort of see where they're coming from in some respects, and making friends with Nick was. My intention was if I can have one foot in that world and one foot in the same.
There's nothing
in the same world of everybody else. Maybe
there's nothing wrong with wanting to learn like why somebody thinks something. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you support what they say. It doesn't mean you believe what they have to say. Okay, let's just be real here.
I could help bridge the gap there. It turned out not to be the case because he's let's say not a bridge builder, but
what is it specifically you don't agree with him?
Isn't it?
What is it you don't agree with him about? Christmas is peak time for online shopping sprees, but that also means it's peak time for hackers and data brokers who steal information online.
Is that a fucking ad?
The solution like
hell no.
And
Sorry, Piers. I've seen the car you drive, buddy.
I think he has a
reductionist
and grievance-fueled view of the world that explains almost everything that's wrong with America, geopolitics, the economic state of his generation, and the fact that he can't get a good burger. It all seems to be the Jew fault. And there are some things that now and again that do strike one as unusual, whether it's a Jewish overrepresentation in certain industries. There are certainly criticisms to be had of Israel, but Nick reducing the whole.
I've never understood how Jews can be a race, an ethnic group, and a religious group. I may be forgetting one of those, but like that's the only thing. Like it's like the only group of people on the planet that are ever like all three of those. I've never understood that, but like I kind of learn more as I grow up, and I kind of try to figure it out, but. That's always been really weird to me.
Well, down to a vast Jewish conspiracy, and it would all just be fine if we could smash Jewish power. I mean, I don't have anything remotely like that kind of point of view.
Well, how could you? Your mother's Jewish.
I think it's strange that you're. I think Jewish. Yeah. I think it's strange. I'm confused as to why you seem so anxious to suggest that we're identical. It's quite.
No, I didn't say that. I just, as you were defending him over the misogyny, defending him over the anti-Semitism, defending him over the racism, I just began to conclude that although you're saying it in a different way, and obviously I was being ironic, I myself speak in a English accent, but it seemed to me that you were going out of your way to defend things which I thought were pretty deplorable in that interview.
We bet.
Well, I'm trying to understand where these guys are
Sorry, I wanted to actually, I didn't leave it playing. Like, I wanted to actually hear what he's saying right now.
coming from, because there's a lot of them. There's a whole generation of them. And if we simply write them off as racist, sexist, misogynist pigs, we'll lose them. And we'll lose them to people like Nick Fuentes.
Yes.
I take the view that it would be better to understand what of their package of opinions has validity and what does not. Understand where some of their anxieties and concerns are coming from, figure out what we can fix, and try to rescue a generation that seems to me to be sliding into nihilism and hatred of everybody. Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah. Look, if you want to change people's minds about somebody, we learned this with Trump. Okay, y'all should have all learned this with Trump over the past 10 years. I don't know why nobody's understanding it now. You can't, if you don't like somebody's, if you don't like what they got to say and you really hate them, the worst thing you can do is go online and tell everybody that you hate them. You know why? Because you're marketing them, right? Like, you know, a lot of people like to talk shit in my comments, right? I don't care, because what are you doing? You're creating content. You're engaging with my posts. You're engaging with the things that I put online, right? That's boosting it in the algorithm. Like, if you don't like somebody, let them say what they're gonna say. Don't talk about them and don't acknowledge it, because it's free marketing. It's free promotion. It doesn't matter if it's negative, right? If people weren't talking so much shit about Donald Trump back in 2016, I never would have given a fuck. I never would have gotten into politics. I never would have cared about who, I never would have gotten into it. I never would have switched from Democrat to Republican. I never would have voted. But because y'all talk all that shit, it was free marketing, and I went and I learned. I don't care. I don't give a fuck about what your opinion is. I'm going to form my own opinion. Sorry. This goes for anybody. It goes for Trump, Nick Fuentes. It goes for fucking Hassan. It goes for Asmongold, right? It goes for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. It doesn't matter who it is or what genre it's in. This could go for streamers. It goes for anybody. Like, you let them talk. You let them say what they say, and you don't actively try to destroy them. If you want somebody to disappear, the best thing you can do is just ignore them, because once they, like what I was talking about with Candace earlier, if you just ignore them, and you like, if you think they're full of shit and you just ignore them, their opinion will die out eventually. Period. End of story. There's nothing you can do to stop it.
Well, I mean, look, if we expand it, if you look at someone like Ye, you represent him, I think, right? You work with him still.
Yes, I manage the lawyers, and I run this family office. Yeah.
And again, I would simply say this is a guy who, on the record, I would have asked him this if he hadn't walked out of our last interview, to get him to explain why he said these things. But
why he walked out, bro. I remember
3 years ago this month, he praised Hitler, denied the Holocaust. I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis. I do love Hitler. He posted an image of a swastika fused within a Star of David.
Yeah, he was going wild there for a minute, huh?
Incitement to violence.
He was going wild.
Right, he then produced a song called Heil Hitler, which was banned from many platforms and so on. This is deliberate baiting of Jewish people in the most horrific manner possible. Again, I just ask you: are you comfortable working for him with that?
Well, of course I'm comfortable. I mean, he's an extraordinary human being. I mean, there's a perfectly good explanation for that, which he has given a number of times. You can find it plausible or implausible, as the case may be. But the way he explained it, and he did this on a live stream, it's readily available. He said, "I want to perform Heil Hitler at the Grammys, because if I do that, those words will suddenly no longer have power. I will have conquered them. I will have drained them of all of their, I forget the expression he used, but I suppose I would say something, all of their, or their toxic, hateful, or taboo energy, whatever. The way he was articulating his artistic project in doing that, and some people will find it persuasive and some won't, was that was in terms of, like abuse survivors. We used to laugh at them 10 years ago when they had trigger warnings and safe spaces and little puppy rooms and stuff like that, because everybody knows that if you get raped or something terrible happens to you, the best way to put your life back together is exposure therapy, so that it doesn't become this sort of thing that that turns you into a blubbering mess every time you hear about it for the rest of your life. You just slowly kind of acclimatize back and get used to it. Ye seemed to be taking a similar view about some words, phrases, and opinions that have had a stranglehold on our culture for a long time. And it's funny, he
I see where he's going. He's not necessarily wrong. We're gonna. I haven't really formed an opinion yet, so let's see where it goes. All right.
Perhaps hasn't read, the Holocaust in American Life by Peter Novick, the Princeton academic, who explains how that particular historical event was sort of rebooted in the academy in the 19.
You didn't really miss much, but I don't like how Piers is bringing him on to ask him what his opinions are, and then says, okay, all of your opinions for the past 20 minutes, you've been just defending these people. And it's like, well, you asked me what I thought about it, right? And, from an intellectual standpoint, I completely understand, right? Like, you don't have to agree with these ideas. You don't have to, you just give your perspective on what you think that they are. And then let people get, be the judge.
At the beginning, some people
I don't think that Milo necessarily came on with the intent of defending them. I don't think that's what's running through his mind. Like, I must defend them. I think that he's just giving his honest opinion on it.
Not going to find it plausible. I do think it's a pity.
Like, you could tell the dude, like, through the face, like the way he's speaking, he's thinking about what he's saying. Like, it's not just rambling. It's not just nonsense.
That you two in your encounters with one another seem to have spoken past each other so much. You obviously haven't.
Last time I was prepared to do a lengthy interview. I gave him I did a 2-hour interview with him several years ago, which I thought was very illuminating, very enlightening. I was looking forward to doing the same thing with him the second time round, and he just bailed on me after 3 minutes because he obviously worked out it was going to be a publicity stunt.
Having had that conversation,
you started asking him those questions, bro.
Seen a little glimmer of what is clearly
he wasn't
a
about it.
Intellect, albeit an unconventional one. I mean, you don't seem to give him very much credit as an artist, as a creative, as a provocateur.
No, just to be clear, he's one of the most talented. He's one of the most talented. No, hang on. He's one of the most talented artists of my generation, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt.
It's possible,
but he's also, it's also
a little bit more.
It's also possible to say that some of the stuff he's come out with in the last 2 or 3 years has been disgusting. And I would have said that to him to his face. And by the way, the offer remains. If you want to go back to him and tell him we've had this exchange, I don't expect you to answer for him. If he wants to actually have the balls to sit there and answer these questions to me for a sustained period of time, I will do that interview. But
yeah, but sure, come on, Piers, bro. Like, you be fucking pushing buttons sometimes, and sometimes people don't want to have their buttons pushed. Like, come on, man. You know what you be doing for the shock value and stuff. Like,
he didn't want to.
I don't even have a problem with it. I think it's great content, but like sometimes people don't want to deal with the bullshit. I get it.
Something of an answer. Sorry, go on.
No, go on. Make your point.
Perhaps something of an answer to your frustration is the fact that he did sit down with an Orthodox rabbi a couple of weeks ago, give
I hate being banana shaped
and direct apology for having hurt people.
I'm working on my posture, instead of being like slumped over.
Undertake to understand a bit better why it was.
This chair kind of helps.
What he was seeking to accomplish with those garments and songs and whatever didn't land and upset and hurt a lot of people. I mean, he has begun to acknowledge that. I mean, perhaps your producers didn't tell you that, but that's for him to talk about.
Tell him the offer stands.
He has already acknowledged that, and he has already begun to. Last time he
bailed on me after 3 minutes. If he wants to have a longer conversation, I'll be very happy to do it. I've got to leave it there. Milo Yiannopoulos, thank you for coming on Uncensored.
Thank you. God bless you.
Angel Studios are back with a new must-see documentary. It's called Thank You, Dr. Fauci, and you're going to hear a lot more about it over the next.
Angel Studios is pretty good, actually. Yeah, it's pretty good if you're trying to get some content that's family friendly. It's good. I don't want to do the
eager superfan.